Welcome to Microsoft Excel 2019, Lesson 4 by Megan Reese. Now this lesson, in Lesson 4, we're moving on to kind of in the next section. Lessons 1 through 3 taught you basics in Excel. Basically like what every Excel user should know to be able to function and do most things they need to do in Excel. This section is focused on the MOS certification. So when you take the MOS certification, they're going to ask you really simple things and they're going to ask you random crazy stuff that you never use. At least that was my impression when I took it. And they just are, I don't know, they just do that to be mean. So this section, these next few lessons are all focused on making sure you know all the more unusual things that might be on the test. As well as just more advanced things. So this lesson is all about formatting, advanced formatting, and then I've thrown in a few things that you might be like, why do I need to know this? That's because it's on the MOS certification, which I've taken several times. May not be on the one you take, there's lots of different versions, but it is something that may be covered on that test. Now you might be sitting there saying, I'm not going to take the MOS test, I guess I can skip this section. Wrong. There's still a lot of valuable information in here. There's nothing in here that is a waste of your time to learn, and it's going to give you that advanced level of Excel that's going to make you more valuable. One other change about this lesson, let's look at the print page. I know it looks kind of a mess, but you're going to go through, do part A, then part B, part C, but there is one change, and that, let me fold that the application there's a few things in the application that are not taught in the practice. So in every other previous assignment, I've had you practice it several times and then apply it in the application, but there are some kind of really unusual things that I don't really need you to practice over and over again, so I put them into the application section. Also, when you're ready to print this, there's some extra stuff over here. So make sure you follow these directions when you're ready to print, or else this page is going to print on like 4 pages. So make sure you do that before you get started. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at conditional formatting. And what conditional formatting means is you give it a situation where you say, if this criteria is met, then change colors, or, so it usually changes the appearance of the cell. Okay, it doesn't actually change anything that's inside the cell, but it changes how the cell looks. Now, you've already seen this in previous assignments you've done with me. For example, in lesson 2, when you got these answers right, they turned green. Remember that? That means that you formatted it correctly. Okay, that's conditional formatting, so that when you type in the right answer, it changed color because you did it correctly. Okay, so that's what conditional formatting means. All right, so the first type, there's several different kinds of conditional formatting. And again, this is something that I saw on the MOS test several times in the different times that I took it. The easiest one is to use the data bars. Okay, so I'm going to highlight this information that I want to have conditional formatting. And I'm going to go in the home ribbon under conditional formatting and go to data bars. So these 3 are probably the easiest ones. They kind of do everything for you. Okay, so I can choose kind of what I want it to look like. These ones are solid. These ones have a gradient. Again, I can hold it down long enough, just put your cursor there long enough to tell you what color it is, and it will give me a data bar accordingly by how big the number is. Okay. Another one it has would be color scales, which would give you a scale so that the green is the higher the number, the darker it goes. Okay. So I could set it that way. And then I can go back in. Now here's another thing about when you're doing conditional formatting is you might want to edit it after the fact. So I can go to conditional format it now and say manage rules. And it will show me all the conditional formatting rules that I have set on what I've highlighted. So it has a rule. I can double click on it and I can alter it. So I can say, you know what, instead of these 3 colors, I think I want to do, purple and orange and gray or something. And it will change the order. And what looks really cool is if you sort it like that, it looks pretty awesome seeing the highest to the lowest. And I've used this many times in regular practical ways as a teacher all the time. Another one is to use icon sets. So we're going to click on this one and go to home again. And these are different icons that come with the program. You can kind of pick them as you choose. Okay, so the stars or whatever you want it to be. Now the thing is, it's going to kind of base it, what color it gets based on probably the highest and the lowest percentage. It's probably automatically finding like an average. But say I don't want to do that. Like maybe I don't want 44% to be the middle of the road. Maybe these are scores on a test or something, and 44% is a really bad score, right? So I might want to come in here to do more, manage my rules, and I can say, okay, notice there's a percent here and there's a number. This one is a percent, so I'm going to keep it at a percent. And I might say, okay, well, anything over 80% is going to be green, and anything over 60% is going to be yellow, and then everything else will be red, and it will fix that for me based on what I set it at. Okay, but if I was to do this one with icon sets, okay, this time let's do this one, which you'll be using in your assignment later. I'm going to want to change this one to numbers, right? Because, so maybe 500, and then I don't even know what numbers I used to do this, so let's do 400. Okay, and then okay, and apply, and it alters it, whatever, to fit the way I want it to look. Another one you can do is averages. Okay, so I'm going to take this information and in here, and you can do some of the rules that are in here. So you can do greater than and top bottom. You can do those here, above average. So right here, it's going to say, okay, above average. And it right here, it lets me choose which one I want. I can custom it if I want. If I want to come in here and pick, like, oh, I want it to have this, and I want the font to be, you know, gray or something. It will let me, that's not a very good choice, was it? But it will let me choose that. So that shows me above and below average. Sorry, let me go back to that. So if I have it set to above average, okay, I can say, oh, you know what? Just kidding. I really wanted it to be the other one. So I'm going to go in here and it says above, below. I can switch it to be the other way around, right? So that's another one you can do with that. I'm going to take off all the formatting on this, but let's show you how to do that. Let's say you've got things formatted and you don't want them formatted anymore. I'm going to go to conditional formatting and say clear rules from selected cells, or I could do, you know, all these other ones, but I'm just going to do clear rules from selected cells. Okay, so now I've got some new fresh data in here. We're going to talk next about duplicates. So what you would do is highlight the information. So let's do, I can't remember which one I set up for this, probably this one. Highlight the information you're going to use, and then go to home, conditional formatting. Now you can do it here where you do duplicates. I believe it's in here somewhere, duplicate values. You can also go to new rule and find it here. So just know it can be either way, top and bottom. If you want the top 10, you could do that. This is duplicate, and I would just set the fill how I want it to be. And I don't know if there are duplicates. Okay, so that's going to show me all my duplicates. Or I could just say the other way around and say, instead of showing me the duplicates, show me all the ones that are unique and don't have a duplicate. Okay, so I have used this very recently, actually, when I had to schedule a bunch of students into different sessions. I used duplicate, so I would know if I'd already scheduled a student in that same time. So I just used it in practical the other day. Can I do it with text? Sure. Okay, so these are a bunch of names in here. We're going to go in and do it this way. Duplicate, and we'll pick a color. Okay, and it did that. Okay, found all my duplicates. Now another thing you can do is to find blanks. Okay, so I'm just going to delete a few of these out of here. Okay, so I'm going to highlight this information, go into conditional format, new rule, and this one is going to be cells that contain. Okay, this is probably the one you use the most, is the cells that contain, because there's a whole bunch of different things you can do here. So you can look for specific text or dates. The date one's weird, I tried it, it's kind of weird. But this one we could say blanks. So if there's a blank, any blank, I want you to change that color, and it will change it. Or you can do anything that's not blank. Okay, I'm going to undo though, because I actually want those numbers in there for what I'm doing next. So you can highlight blanks, you'll be doing that in your application. Another one is if you want to highlight what's greater than or less than or equal to. So I'm going to highlight this right here. New rule, format cells that contain a cell value. That means I'm doing numbers. And I could say greater than 4,000. Which actually I think they're all greater than 4,000. So let's do 7,000. Okay. And again, make sure you know you can do fill, but you can also do font. You know, you can make it a different color font, and you can bold it or whatever. Okay, so I'm going to do that one, and there it is. All the ones that were greater went there. Okay, I guess I have these in alphabetized or something. So that's just one of the many that you can do. Let's come over here and say, okay, fine, let's do a cell value between 1,400, I don't even know what numbers I use rand to get these numbers, 1,400 and 1,000 700, okay? And let's just do the font on that, change it to a red font, click OK, and it just made them all red that were in between that section. So kind of cool. It asks you to do a custom scale. I actually kind of showed you that already. That's when you can do it, like, you can do color scale here, but you could also do new rule, and based on their values you just create one right here. So you can do a 2 scale, you can do a 3 scale, and then it'll take you into data bars and icon set. So it's just another way to get to the same place. But it's asking you to do a custom one, which means that you will select the colors. Okay. Okay, the other one is use a formula. Now, I don't want to get too into this one just because it's getting into if functions, which we are not quite ready for. We're going to do if functions in the next section in lesson 5. But remember it, because this is kind of your introduction into if functions, which are the bomb. They are so awesome. So I'm going to come in here. So when you do a formula, you have to do it one at a time. So this is going to get a little tricky. This is actually something that took me a long time to learn in conditional formatting. And then once I learned it, it made my life a lot easier. So I use a formula to determine what cells to format. So I want it to say, if this number is bigger than that number, then color it. So I can just click on it. I can just say, this is greater than this. Now notice it automatically puts absolute values in there, which means that if I drag it down, it's not going to do me any good. I want it to drag down all the way. So I actually have to remove the absolute values. You can push F4, by the way, to get rid of absolute values. Okay, then I set it. And yeah, it worked for that one, but it hasn't worked for all of these. But because I removed the absolute values, I can format paint it on the rest and it will apply. Okay, if I didn't remove the absolute values, it's not going to work because it's looking specifically for these 2 cells. So that is a trick it took me a while to figure out and made my life a lot easier. Okay, and the last one would be specific text. So I'm going to go into conditional formatting, new rule, cells that contain. So we did the blanks, we did the cell value, now we're going to be doing specific text. This is if you're looking for a specific word. So if we say, now when you do words, you have to do an equal sign and you have to put it in quotes. Okay, so I'm going to do Allison. So I just want, anytime I see the name Allison, it's going to turn, right? So it can do with text, but you've got to remember, as in most things, with text in Excel, you've got to put text in quotes or else Excel gets really confused by text. Okay? Part B is all about making tables. So when you are in Excel, you can choose whether to format it normally like this or to set it up in a table. And there are some advantages to tables, there's disadvantages to tables. They're not something I actually used very much until I took the MOS test and then kind of realized they were important. So what it is when you, right now this is just a range of cells with information. I can highlight this information and I can go into insert and I can choose to make it a table. Now you may have to choose whether your table has headers or not, meaning is each column have a name. If it does, then make sure you check that box, you click OK, and it puts it automatically into a table. Now some of the advantages to a table is that it automatically has a data filter. So it just puts it in right away. But it's not the same as sorting. If you wanted to sort information, see if you do it this way, it's not gonna sort one way than the other. You can only sort it by one thing at a time. So remember that filters and sorting are not interchangeable. But you can rearrange it. Another thing that's cool about it is that you can change the formatting. So up here, we're going to talk about some styles. I go to Table Tools, which appears only if I have a table, and there are table styles here. Okay, guaranteed MOS test will ask you to do this, where you have to find exactly the right one. Okay, so it'll say gold table style medium 5. Just hold your cursor over it, and you can find whatever one that they're looking for. Okay. And most of these styles are going to come with banded rows, which means that it's every other, the colors are highlighted. Now in a regular range, okay, I would have to do that by hand. If I wasn't using a table, I would have to color that by hand. And then if I inserted a new name, I'd have to recolor the entire thing. This one I don't have to. If I insert a new name here, it will automatically adjust the coloring to fit. Okay, and I can put new information in there. So that's another big advantage to a table. Another thing is that math looks a little bit different. Now, I did the math before I pulled this over, so let's do this now. They took out a loan for this amount, and then this is how much they paid. So if I do math in here and I say equals, Let's see, this, notice it already names it. It's like it does a range name, like when you name it up here in the name box, it already puts a name in there. And I'm going to say divided by the loan amount. So it looks a little different when you do it, and then when you press enter, it automatically fills it all the way down, which is super cool. So you don't have to use your autofill, it will just do it for you. You can delete it if you don't want that, but when you're in your table tools, there are some options here, like I can add a total row, which will automatically give me a total, but I might be like, oh, I don't want a total, I want an average, and it will have it there for me. And I can just pull this down, maybe get an average for each of these, or maybe I want to know max or something, and it's already, programmed in automatically. You can also choose to get rid of the banded rows. So if you don't want them, that's what banded rows means. I think one of the tests asked me about that. Banded rows, or you can say, oh, I just want banded columns, or I just want the last column to be emphasized, or the first column to be emphasized. Or I could turn off the filter buttons. If you don't want those filter buttons, you can turn them off. So those are some of the advantages to using a table. Now, assuming you wanted to expand it, let's say I have some new information here and I want to have it grow, I can actually grab this and expand it to go that way or to come down if I have some new names. Okay, so you can expand your table to include new rows if you need them, and then just name them up here or whatever. Another thing is get data. This I felt is pretty advanced. I wouldn't normally have taught this, except again it was on the MOS test. That is if you want to pull data in from another location. We do this in Word, and it's quite simple in Word. It's not so simple in Excel, but you're going to go to Get Data from File. And from Workbook is if you're pulling it from another Excel file. Text CSV, that's if you save it so that it's in spreadsheet form, but it's not specific to Excel. It can be opened in any spreadsheet. And that's the type that we are going to be using in here. So we're just going to go grab that. So I'm just going to grab this one and pull it in. And what it does is it will actually pull up and ask you how you want to pull it in. And I experiment with a lot of this because I'll be honest, this is not something I ever use, but again, it's on the test. So I tried the load too, and I just found that to me the easiest thing was just to load it. What it does is it puts it in its own cell. It goes into all the queries and stuff, which is way advanced Excel. We're not going to go into that, but notice it gave it its own page, and it got me the wrong columns. It doesn't show my columns. I'm going to show you really quickly how to remove it. So let's say I've got it set in a table, but I don't want it to be a table anymore. So what I do is I highlight the information that I have. This is a lot of information. And I go to Table Tools, and right here it says Convert to Range. Click OK, and now it's turned, into a range. It looks the same, but you'll notice it is no longer a table. It doesn't have a little thingy in the corner and none of that stuff. It doesn't have all the same things. The table's not clicked on up here. It does look the same, so you might want to go to Home and clear the formatting to make it look normal. And then I could just copy and paste that into whatever I want it to be, right? So I could copy and paste that information in. I gotta do it here. Okay. So that's the thing about Excel. If you copy columns, you've got to paste columns. So that's why it was giving me an error there. But okay, so that's how you would get data. If you wanted to sort data that's in a table, it's really not any different than when it's not in a table. So say I wanted to sort this by the last name, then I would just do the data and sort as you normally would, right? The last thing looking at B that I haven't talked about is removing duplicates. So earlier we talked about conditional formatting, where you can emphasize, like you can show what the duplicates are. But this is when you want to do more than that. You don't want to just show the duplicates, you want to actually get rid of them. Okay, so what you would do is highlight the information, and I want all their stuff to go with them. So if I delete their name, I want all their stuff to go too, right? So I'm going to go over to my Data tab, and I'm going to go to Table Tools and remove duplicates. So then I really only want to look for name, because these are not really necessary. I know the duplicates are all in the name column. So I click OK, and it says, oh, we found 12 duplicates, and it automatically deletes them. So it doesn't just say, oh yeah, there's some duplicates. It will just take them right out. So, all right, we're on to part C, which is kind of a catch-all for lots of random stuff that you can do. There is a big portion of this that's only things you can only do in Office 2019. So if you are using 2016, for the most part, my lessons you can do in 2016 as easily as 19, but this does have some stuff that are new features in 2019, so just be warned. The first one is called Flash Fill, which is in 2016, was not in 2013, so it's a pretty new thing. And what it does, super cool, is it allows me to change the way things look. So I'm gonna insert 2 new columns here. Say that I, instead of saying J Stewart, I want Jace in one column and Stewart in the other. So I would just kind of tell it what I want. I put Stewart, I put Jace, and then I click on it, I go to data, we're doing a lot of data tab stuff today, and I go to Flash Fill, and it just figures it out. It just goes, oh, okay, you want me to change it that way. I could even say something like, let's delete these ones out. I could say, do Stewart, sorry, figures are not on where they should be. Stewart 3 or 4, okay? Let's see what happens. Will it know? Yep, it puts a 4 after everything, okay? So it finds the pattern and lets you fill that in, okay? So sometimes it makes you highlight it first and then push the button. So if you go to do it and you get an error, it could be that you just need to highlight all the emptiness, like you need to highlight it like this and then do Flash Fill. I've seen it work both ways. I've never tried to figure out why it's different, but that's Flash Fill. It can do some super cool things. In your assignment, you'll get a little check mark if you do it correctly. It's also a great way to combine 2 names that are separated. So, okay, so in this case, see, I got the error. Okay, I think it's probably because I put Jace first and not Stewart first. So in this case, I have to do that, but it still works. And then if I wanted to combine them back, I could say Stewart, Jace, you know, and it will let me combine them back again. So great way to kind of reorganize information without having to use fancy functions or anything. The next one is indent. This is one that I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I had never used it before, and then I saw it on the MOS test and I was like, oh, I wish I'd known this a long time ago. So let's say I've got a title that's like, this is like in your assignment, it says expenses, and then I have these numbers in here, and I want the numbers to be kind of underneath this title. And what I always did in the past is I just made a little small one like that, you know, and then I copied and pasted it over here, and that's how I made my indent. That's how I've always done it. And then, yeah, this happens in Excel all the time where you're like, of course Excel has a better way. So I'm going to highlight the information, go to Format Cells, or you can just go to Alignment up here, and it's right there, indent. Don't know why I never noticed it. Okay, click OK, and it indents. Well, let's make it whiter. It actually indents it in a little bit further, and you had a lot of control there in how deep you wanted your indent to go. So kind of cool thing that you can do there. The next section is learning how to insert pictures. Again, this is something if you've done Word already, you know this back to front, so it should be really easy. But when we go to insert, there are several ways to get a picture. So you can do from file. So let's say I have a picture already saved. So I'd go to pictures, I'd go find the picture and pull it in. And that's when you want to pull something in that you've saved on your file. So in your assignment, there's a specific picture you're supposed to go get that's in your folder. Okay, or you could do an online picture. So you do insert online pictures. Now in my classroom, the online picture stuff gets blocked and it doesn't always work. So try it, see if you can. It's going to do Creative Commons only, so it automatically filters out anything that's got copyright issues. So you get less options, but at least you have to worry about it, and then you can pull it in. But again, it also was going to pull this in, like it tells you what it is, so you may want to delete that out. And then you can resize or whatever. If you cannot get it to work that way, like in my classroom for some reason it just doesn't, I don't know if it's the blocking settings that the district has put on there, then you're going to have to do it the other way, which is to actually go find a file online. So I'm just going to type in car, go get the image that you want, and you can either save it or copy and paste it. So I can just click on it, copy, pull it in, and then pull it in and paste it. Okay. Makes it kind of big, so it's not as convenient, but it is how you would get a picture that does have copyright and it might not show up in the online search. Occasionally you might copy it and you just get a blank. It copies like a blank picture. There's nothing in it. If that's the case, then you're going to want to do it the other way, which is to right click and save the image in your folder and then go insert it the way we did this one. Okay, so in your document, you're supposed to insert one from on file, and then insert one from online, and then you need to copy one in. So you need to do that all three different methods. You also want to insert a shape. So again, this is something we cover really deeply in PowerPoint and Word, but just drawing a shape and pulling it in. And then I believe it has you do a whole bunch of different things to make it fancy. So let's talk a little bit about that, because that's another thing that was on the MOS test that kind of surprised me. I've always been like, make it blue, and I've left it at that, but no. They're going to get complicated. They're not just going to say add a bevel. They're going to say add a relaxed inset or a soft rounded bevel, and then they might want you to go in and do 3D options and actually change the point size of how big that bevel is or how tall it is. So there are options in here where you can alter it a little bit to make it look different. You can even change what material it's made out of, and so there's some really fancy stuff in here. I might tell you, oh, make it blue, gray, text 2, lighter shade 40%. Like it might tell you to do a color like that, so it can be a little confusing. You can also do your borders, which is your shape outline. Okay, this allows me to change the weight of my shape outline. I can make it dashed or dotted or change the color or whatever. So those are all some options you'll need to know how to do with your shapes. Another, all those things you can do in 2016. Okay, none of those are new. This next part is only in 2019, which is the icons, which is an awesome addition. I totally love it. So I can go to insert, and instead of just shapes and pictures, I can do icons. So I click on that, and it has all these cool pre-programmed icons. It's kind of like their new answer to clip art. We used to have clip art, and they took that out a few years ago, and now this is kind of the new thing. So you can search for what you're looking for. So maybe I want a duck, and it says, oh, there you go. So I pick the duck, I insert it, and there's my little icon. And I can do a lot of things with this icon. I can change the color, just like it's any other shape. I can do all the things I do to a shape, I can do to that. And I can add effects and bevels and whatever you want to do to that icon. You might have noticed in assignment 3 that there were icons that looked like little mini graphs, and when you clicked on them, it took you to wherever I got that information, that data. That's how I did it, is by using the icons options. Then they added this thing called 3D model. This is also only in 2019. I'm still trying to figure out why I would ever need this. I'm not going to lie, but you can do from file. It's just kind of cool though, so I'm going to show you. Do from online sources, and you just kind of pick one, and they just got a ton of cool things in here. So you click on it, you insert it, and then it's not just a picture though, it's a 3D model. You can actually move it around and stuff. So I suppose there's some advanced reason why you would need to know this. And it was on the MOS test. I actually think for Word, not Excel, but there you go. That's how you do it. It's kind of cool. Another added feature to Excel is the draw ribbon. That's new. So draw with touch, I only assume you can only use that if you have a touch screen, which I do not have, but you can choose what kind of pen you want, and you can choose, from here what you kind of want it to look like, pick your color, whatever, and then you can draw. Now what's so cool about it is that once I go to my select tool, I can pick it up and move it like it's an actual item. So lasso select, I can, select just a piece of it. So the lasso is kind of cool, and then it lets me move it or whatever. So anyway, it's kind of fun. Go in and play with it. It's kind of cool. You can erase pieces of it. I just erased it like that. The ink to math is also kind of cool. It's weird because you'd think it would make it an Excel math problem, but it really doesn't. I imagine this is really good when you're using like an iPad or something, but you basically can write a math problem, and then it figures out what you want, and then you can insert it, and it's like an image. So another interesting weird thing they put in 2019, doubt it will be on the MOS test, but I did throw it in so that you know what it is. The next thing is hyperlinks, and again, this might be something you've already learned in Word and PowerPoint if you've done them already, but adding a link, the difference in Excel is it doesn't actually say hyperlink, it just says link. So you can right click and do link, or you can go to, I believe, let's see, where is it? I think it's in the insert column. There's a link there. So if you have a website you want to link it to, you just type it in, and there it is, and now you've got a link to it. And when I click on it, it will actually take me to wherever I'm going, right? So that's adding a hyperlink. You can add a hyperlink to icons, to pretty much anything that's an image or a shape you can make. There we go again. you can turn it into a link. And it does ask you to create a couple of links in the document. Also highlighting words, so I could click on a word and go to link and, type in what I wanted it to be. And it becomes a link as well that also will pull up whatever I'm looking for. Okay, almost done. We're going to talk about alternative text. This is one of those things, again, that it will probably be on the MOS test that I personally never needed, but I suppose if you need it, you really need it. And it's just things you do to make people who have disabilities be able to see or recognize what you're doing without, maybe they can't. It'll read it out loud to them if they can't see or whatever. So it's kind of a disabilities kind of thing. So you can click on any image and you go to edit alternative text, and it will already have something in there that was probably programmed with the picture. But you can come in and type something else. This is a duck. One thing I learned, I don't know if it's just my computer, but it takes forever. Like I'll type it all in and then it takes a minute to catch on. That you can click on. But so it takes forever to come up, and then I make all kinds of errors. But that's how you add alternative text. Okay, and that will come up later when we do our checking for accessibility. All right, that finishes part C, but remember that in this lesson, there are some new things in the application. So I'm not going to go through the application, of course, but there are some additional things that I just didn't feel like I wanted to make you practice them over and over again because they're awkward and they're weird, and so I just included them right into the application. So let's go ahead and talk about those things. The first one is split screen. So split screen is best when you have a lot of data, which I don't right now, but if you have a whole ton of data that you're going through, it can be really hard to constantly be having to scroll over to get to the end of it. And then when you do, you can't see where it came from. So what that does is we're going to go to view, and there's two kinds. There's freeze and there's split. So freeze, I can highlight anywhere that I want, and I can say freeze panes, and if I do the first one, it'll freeze it wherever I put it. It'll go above wherever I put it, okay? Or I can just do the freeze, I can just do freeze the first column, okay, and then it freezes it that way. Or I can say, freeze top row, and then it's doing that one as well. And okay, then you've got your, so I'm going to go ahead and unfreeze that. Then you got your split. So split, wherever I click, it's going to split it right there. And that's what you do if you want the top and the bottom to be able to move. Okay. So I actually find the split very hard to work with though. So I don't like it. I actually rarely use freeze panes, but I have needed it many times and it's been useful. So so that's how you freeze panes, and you'll be doing that in the assignment just to help you get through it because there is a lot of data, and so it lets you navigate a little bit easier. The next one is set print area. I use this one a lot in assignments when I have like a score sheet like this, how in the assignments I have a score sheet, and I don't want the kids to print, say, this page. I don't want them to print that, okay? So I'm like, don't print this. I only want you to be able to print this. And I don't want to get a bunch of these off my printer, because if a kid prints this, I'm going to get 1,000,000 pages, 6 pages if a kid prints that, right? And there's always a kid that's going to not follow the directions and print that. So what I do is I do print area. I basically say, if you're on this slide, and I go to page layout, and I'll say print area, set print area. Okay, so this is all it thinks that I need to print. So now when I go to print, it prints a blank page. Okay, so that's the trick for getting people to not print what you want, or to say, I really, when they print, I only want them to print this. I wish so bad that Google Sheets would do this. You cannot do this in Google Sheets. It drives me crazy. But I can say, okay, make that the print area. So now when they go to print, it's only going to print that. So it's a good way to ensure that you print only what is needed. And you can always remove the print area later. So that's how you set a print area. Okay, so this next one is printing titles. I'd literally just auto-fill this down so I'd have a lot more data. So it's not really the best data in the world, but let's say that I want to print this, and I've got my titles here, and it's bolded, and it's big, and it's all organized the way I want it. And I want to make sure that when I print this, get rid of this, it's going to show up on every page. So right now I print it, and then the next page looks like that, see? So I might not know what all these things mean, right? So I can do what's called print titles. So I go to page layout, I go to print titles, and then it says rows to repeat at the top, and I highlight those rows, and I say okay. And now when I go to print and I go to the next page, those titles show up on every page. So in your assignment, it'll just be 2 pages, but it will let you put it on both pages. All right, group and ungroup is kind of cool. It allows you to take an information, like maybe I take this and I go to, again, my data, and I can group it. And it gives me a little thing here so I can actually, so this is really good when you have a lot of data and it's just a pain. You don't always want to see everything it's showing, so you can do that so that you only see pieces of it. Okay, I have you in your assignment insert a blank line, because if you're like, oh, I want to have this be a group, and then if you try to do the very next one and make another group, it just combines them into one group. So what I had you do in your assignment is add a blank line so that you can create the next group like that. And then you have a lot of options. Again, not something I've used a lot, but it has been useful another way. I'm going to show you how I've used it. So this was an assignment that I made for Valentine's Day for my students, where they type in their Mad Libs. So in here they type in all their, whatever their Mad Lib is, and then they click on this button and it opens up the Mad Lib so they can read it. So that was just one way that I used a group for an assignment. That was kind of... Okay, the next part is in your document properties. And again, I suppose there's a reason to use this. I never use this, but in almost every test I've taken on MOS, they do this. So it's changed a little bit in 19. If you're using 16, it may look a little different, but you go to home and you go to info, and then you can come in here and change what the document properties are. So I can come in here and say my name and, you know, assignment 4, whatever it is. Okay, and notice there's also, and I had to do this on the test, properties and advanced properties, which allows me to create keywords and comments and further information about all this stuff. So you can enter stuff in here. So you can add a manager and a subject and all this information. So that's document properties. It just gives you more information about the properties or about the document that you've created. The next one is inspecting your workbook, or inspecting for issues. So in this assignment, you're going to be inspecting the document and accessibility. So inspecting your document, again, this was on the test. Hold on. Oh, it's asking me to save because this is just a blank page that I just pulled up, so I got to save it really quick. But it's going to find stuff that it thinks might be a problem. Okay, so it's just asking, what do you want me to look for? Do you want me to look for, you know, you can check and say, oh, I only want you to click for this, you know, so just say what you want it to look for. And then you inspect it and it will say, okay, we found the following problems. Oh, it's got personal information. Oh, I don't want all that stuff, so I'm going to remove that. Basically, the document properties I just put in. So anything else that's kind of weird about it, oh, there are links. Do I want those links in there? You know, maybe you don't. Maybe you put those in and you want to get rid of them, you know. So it just kind of shows you if there's an exclamation point, that means there was some sort of problem that you can remove, okay? The other thing you can do is the accessibility, which kind of goes back to that alternative text that we added. So if I check for accessibility, it's going to be looking for different things, and it might give you a couple of warnings about stuff that might be confusing or weird. In your assignment, I don't make you change anything, but be aware of how to do it and kind of pay attention to what it says. Because this one is saying, hey, maybe you should rename the sheet. Like, the sheet doesn't have a name. That's probably not a good thing. And go, oh, okay, you're right. I should probably just, you know, call this, you know, names or whatever I'm going to call it, right? So it lets me make those changes. So it just makes it easier for other people to use, those who are with disabilities or without disabilities. So that completes this assignment. Once again, just a reminder that when you do finish this assignment and you have everything done, that you follow these directions, okay? You need to change the orientation to landscape. You need to change the margins to narrow. You need to set your print area. And notice on scale to fit, in the past we just clicked this and moved on our merry way, but this one, this one is normal, but on your application, you have to go to scale to fit. You have to set it to do 2 pages. So you do one and then do 2 tall, right? So just keep that in mind when you do that. Okay, that completes assignment 4. A lot of weird stuff in this, but a lot of great stuff. So good luck on your application, and we will see you back here for assignment 5 when we learn some advanced functions. Thank you for joining me.